it going? Devin here again with countryguitaronline.com. We are moving forward with this lesson series we got going on here, learning how to play really nice chord embellishments, rhythm guitar, fill riffs, lead guitar techniques, all sorts of cool stuff like that. And we're focusing on the note combinations that will make your playing sound the most country and bluegrass. Really cool sound. And there's scales that go into all that. And it's one thing memorizing these scales, learning them, but the next step is how do you apply these scales to your playing and how do you play them in different combinations to make your playing sound country and bluegrass. Prior to this lesson, and if you haven't seen the videos prior to this lesson, check those out first to get up to speed where we're at today. But prior to this lesson, we learned the G major pentatonic scale. And we're focusing on the key of G just because the key of G is so common for country and bluegrass. But we'll start there and we'll branch out into other keys later. We learned the fifth position of these scales last time. And the fifth position is right here near the nut, that white part. So you can use all those open strings. And the reason we're learning this one first is because this scale is just handy for using to create these fills, because the G, C, D chord progressions are right there, and then the scales are right there too. So really, really handy. Really important to understand this stuff. Okay, so we learned the fifth position of the G major pentatonic scale. Then we added on a few extra major scale notes to get to the complete major scale. We already covered this stuff. Go back and watch those videos. Then we learned the minor pentatonic scale, fifth position. And then we added on a couple extra blues notes to that minor pentatonic scale. Right there. And there's another one. So 2 blues notes. Same note, an octave apart, and this was last lesson where we covered the blues notes. And the blues notes, that's when your country, that country sound starts to come out. Okay, so we've done all that so far, and we've looked at these scales individually, and we've learned riffs from these scales individually, and then applied these riffs to chord progressions in different ways. Now, let's start mixing these scales together, and this is what gets a little tricky. But if you think about those 4 scales, it's actually not too difficult, because of those 4 scales, you really only have 2 scales, because the major pentatonic scale is just a stripped down version of the major scale. So between those two, we just have the major scale. And then between the minor pentatonic scale and the blues scale, those are pretty much the same too, because the minor pentatonic scale, you just add a couple notes and then you have the blues scale. So between those two, you pretty much just have the blues scale. So we're going to be looking at 2 main scales going forward, the major scale and then the blues scale, and mixing those 2 scales right here. All that stuff I'm playing right there, it's real fast, real complicated sounding. And don't get intimidated by that, because we're going to start very slow with this stuff, and even the most complicated sounding licks and riffs, fills, whatever you want to call them, even the most complicated ones are not that complicated when you slow them down. And that's the key to all this stuff. You just got to try to learn these licks and get the technique down with that right hand, and eventually the speed will come. Just focus on a really light touch with the left hand and right hand. Relax everything, just keep telling yourself that, and focus on getting clean picks, where there's no buzzing and you're not catching more than one string. Just focus on those nice, soft, clean picks. And eventually, it'll all just come together, I promise. Okay, so let's throw up the chart just so you can get a visual of what we're going to be talking about today. We've got the major scale right here. And then this next chart here is the minor pentatonic, or the blues scale, excuse me. We got those 2 scales. same position, slightly different fingering. Now we're just going to mix them together, and there's some overlap, but you're just going to have to do some studying on it to get those shapes down in your mind. So let's throw up this next chart here. This next chart is both of them combined. The black notes, those are the major scale notes, and I chose to put the major scale notes in black because when I create these fill riffs and everything, I think about these riffs in terms of the major scale. You know, the major scale is the main scale that I use, and then all the other notes are kind of just additions to the major scale, if that makes sense. So I keep this major scale in mind, and then I've done enough studying to where I know where I can reach to pick up extra blues scale notes to make it sound a little more country and bluegrass. So I'll just venture outside this major scale a little bit here and there. You know, and I know everybody thinks of this stuff differently. Some of y'all may think about this from the minor pentatonic scale perspective. It doesn't matter, you know, as long as you get these shapes down and they make sense to you, you know, you can see the shapes, then that's what it's all about. That's where you got to start, is with these scale shapes. And then eventually the scale shapes and everything, you know, when you're first learning the stuff, you'll really be stuck and handicapped by these scale shapes because it's tough to try to figure out how to branch out of these scale shapes when you're improvising and creating your own riffs. Because all you've really learned up to that point is just boring scales. And then that's where I'll come in and help y'all figure out some cool combinations that sound country and bluegrass. And then eventually, you won't even think about the neck, really, in terms of the scales. All that'll go away, and you'll just have a huge collection of riffs that you know that you'll be able to use over a ton of different songs in a bunch of different situations. So that's where we're headed this whole series. I apologize for just rambling on. I have the tendency to talk a lot on this stuff. You know, I rewatch it and I realize I get carried away sometimes. But now let's see what we're going to do going forward in this lesson, in the next video in this lesson. We're going to have a tablature download below this video here at countryguitaronline.com. You can click that button, download the tab that will give you all some little fills that you can add in between your chord transitions. We'll go through it bar by bar and learn these fills. And the next tab on this post is going to be a whole separate video where I go through this and break these down even further. And so what we're going to do, this chord progression that we're going to cover is the same progression we used a couple lessons ago. It's the one from A Man of Constant Sorrow in the key of G. The main progression is 5-chord progression. I am a man of constant sorrow. I've seen troubles on my knees. Just like that. 2 bars of G, 1 bar of C, 1 bar of D, back to 1 bar of G. And we've already gone over that progression, so hopefully y'all remember it. But now, what we're going to do instead is play the first 3 beats. We're going to do the rhythm, that boom chick rhythm, boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, just like that. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. So that'll be rhythm all the way through the 3 E and a, and then the 4 E and a is going to be one of those full riffs. 4 E and a. Here's an example. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And then start over with the C. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. just like that. They're going to be short fills that you'll add in between the chord changes, and it's going to sound good when you play this piece of sheet music all the way from the beginning to the end. And so these fills, they're going to start combining the blues scale and the major scale notes, so you can start to get a feel for how this works. And you can pick out some of the ones that you like, use them in other songs. Most of the time, all these fills you can use. Say for example, the first one is between a G and a C chord. A lot of times, even because we used it between a G and a C chord this time, we could also probably use that exact same fill between a C and a D chord. No rules on this, just be creative with it and start to experiment with these combinations. So anyways, that's what we're gonna do. I don't wanna keep on talking too much more about this without learning the actual stuff. So let's get into going through the sheet music and learning these riffs.